Hello readers and writers. Today we're going to be doing a read the first chapter book challenge. So I have a lot of books on my TBR shelf, and not all of them I have the same interest in as when I first acquired them, and some I've just picked up over the years without even really remembering where they came from. So I've seen other YouTubers do this where they read a first chapter of a book and then decide whether or not they're going to keep it or unhaul it. And I thought it would be a really great idea to do this as a vlog. I've picked 10 books off my shelves. I originally was going to go for just YA books, but I ended up picking books without any sort of real theme to it and just kind of grabbing what I wasn't sure if I was actually still interested in or not. I have plenty of more books on my TBR shelf so that we can do this more often. Let's see how it goes. So the first book I'm going to be picking up is The Assassin's Guide to Love and Treason. And I honestly can't remember where I got this from. It wasn't a book outlet purchase, and I don't think it came from a book box. So maybe I picked it up at some point and don't even remember it. But it says, when Lady Catherine's father is killed for being an illegally practicing Catholic, she discovers treason wasn't the only secret he'd been hiding. He was also involved in a murder plot against the reigning Queen Elizabeth I. With nothing left to lose, Catherine disguises herself as a boy and travels to London to fulfill her father's mission, and to take it one step further, she'll kill the Queen herself. Catherine's opportunity comes in the form of William Shakespeare's newest play, which is to be performed in front of Her Majesty. But what she doesn't know is that the play is not just a play. It is a plot to root out insurrectionists and destroy the rebellion once and for all. The mastermind behind the ruse is Toby Ellis, a young spy for the Queen with secrets of his own. When Toby and Catherine are cast opposite each other as the play's leads, they find themselves inexplicably drawn to each other. But the closer they grow, the more precarious their positions become, and soon they learn that star-crossed love, mistaken identity, and betrayal are far more dangerous off the stage than on. So my prediction for this is that I'm probably going to unhaul it. It's very YA, very romance-based. I'm not entirely sure I'm okay with the whole girl dressing as a boy trope when it's not actual trans representation. And I don't think I've heard really good things about it, which is why I've put this on my list in the first place. So let's see how it goes. Okay, so I just read the prelude and the first chapter of An Assassin's Guide to Treason. It's very much so far about being Protestant versus Catholic, so definitely a historical vibe. The tone of voice it's written in is weird. I mean, I'm not sure the best way to describe it. I can think more about it and try and figure it out, but I really don't want to. Honestly, I thought that this would be, from what I've heard, I thought it actually would be poorly written, and it doesn't seem to be poorly written, at least what I've read so far. So I do appreciate that. But just from these first two chapters, the tone that it's written in, as well as what it's about, this book is not going to be for me. So the next book I'm going to pick up is Miracle Creek, a novel by Angie Kim. I originally got this because it has an autistic character, and it's been sitting on my shelf because it's an autistic character written by a neurotypical author. And when I first bought a bunch of books with autistic characters, I was really happy to I just really wanted to see myself seen in books, and then I found out that I just got really frustrated with the representation over and over again, it just being so bad. And so I stopped reading them. on my shelf, and so this one's been sitting on there for a while, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it a chance and see what I think. So this isn't off to a very great start. Hibernatic oxygenation is a pseudo treatment for autism that is very problematic and doesn't have a lot of testing behind it, and to have this as a definition as the first intro to the book, it's not very positive. It's not very does not leave me very hopeful for the rep. I can't do it. I can't read this book. I made it to page 9 before I started skimming it, but I can't do it. So for some effing reason, this book is set in a company that does hyperbolic oxygen chambers for autistic kids treatment, and I don't know where this is leading, and I don't care. But someone completely unqualified was left in charge, and a bunch of autistic kids died, and this is a fucking plot point in this book. Why? Why is this the representation we get? And why did someone think that this was a great idea? Some pseudoscientific bullshit, and now it's a autistic tragedy to showcase neurotypical people. I mean, like, no. Absolutely not reading this book. Are you kidding me? Obviously this hits nerve. So I'm gonna take a break and I'll come back with the next book I'm going to read. Yes, we still have a snowman hanging on my wall. No, I'm not sure why it's still there. I think the last time I went to put it in with the Christmas decorations, the kid objected, and I just decided it really didn't matter. Besides, we also have a Zelda poster, so it kind of evens itself out. Alright, ready to move on to the next book. Shatter Me. This is probably going to be a controversial one to have on this list, but I bought the entire series without any idea what it is about. And I actually have other books by this author, specifically from Illumicrate. Beautiful edition. But I don't know if this series is going to be for me or not. I didn't realize it was very, like, romance-based when I bought it, or at least that's what I've picked up since. And so I really want to kind of give it a shot to see if it's something that I really am going to be interested in or not. So let's find out. So I've read the first 3 chapters in Shatter Me, which is only 20 pages. I thought about reading more, but honestly, I feel like if I read more, I'm just going to get sucked into the whole book and just finish it. Which means, I guess, I think I'm going to keep it. I'm not entirely sure because it still has the potential to be a very graphic romance novel, which I'm just not into, or just an intense romance novel, but it also has the potential to be like a dystopian, which is what the beginning is, and I'm really enjoying that. The writing is interesting, but it's meant to be that way on purpose, to kind of like detract from reality. So I both respect it and am kind of annoyed by it. I don't know if it continues through the whole novel or not. So I'm really on the fence with this one. I posted it to my Instagram stories to see what people think. I probably am going to end up keeping it, but I think I'm still weighing my opinion on it. So I'm going to go pick up another book. The next book I'm going to read is Dear Amy. This is another book that I don't actually remember why it's on my shelf and where I got it from. It says, Margaret Louise is a teacher at an exclusive high school in the English university town of Cambridge. In her spare time, she writes an advice column, Dear Amy, for the local newspaper. When one of Margaret's students, 15-year-old Katie, disappears, the school and the town fear the worst. And then Margaret gets a Dear Amy letter unlike any she's received before. It's a desperate plea for rescue from the girl who says she's being held captive and in terrible danger. A girl named Bethany Avery, who was abducted from the local area 20 years ago and never found. The letter matching a sample of Bethany's handwriting that the police have kept on file since she vanished, and this shocking development in an infamous cold case catches the attention of criminologist Martin Forrester, who has been trying to find out what happened to her all these years ago. Spurred on by her concern for both Katie and the mysterious Bethan, Margaret seeks out, with Martin's help, to discover if the two cases are connected, and then Margaret herself becomes a target. Okay, so obviously I picked this up because it's been on my shelf forever, and I didn't remember what it's about, but reading the background, or reading the description, I think this is going to end up being one I keep, but I'm going to read through it to see what it's about, but sounds very intriguing. And it is time for lunch while I read. So I've read the first 2 chapters, or 28 pages, of Dear Amy. I'm going to keep it. It's a little much though, so we'll see if I have to put it down for triggers. But I'm definitely going to give it a shot to see what happens. So I actually went and checked to see if Dear Amy was available as an audiobook, and saw that the reviews were really low, so I kind of went and took a look, and it's not very popular. It says like the first third of it's like the best part, and then it just gets even worse from there, and since that's the part that kind of held my interest, but also I was concerned about like triggers, this may actually be a no for me. I'm doing really good at clearing off shelf space, so there is that. The next book I'm going to pick up is Horrid. This is a YA horror book, which I don't do very well with YA. It also was sent out by a book box that I would really like to either get all those books off my shelves or fall in love with the story themselves, so that there's a reason for me to keep them. And so I'm going to read this one to see if I'm going to continue reading it or not. Oh, what is it about? So this is, following her father's death, Jane North Robbins and her mom, Ruth Lynn, moved from sunny California to the drearily dilapidated old house in Maine where Ruth grew up. All they want is a fresh start, but behind North Manor's doors lurk a history that leaves them feeling more alone and more tortured. As the cold New England's autumn arrives and Jane settles into her new home, she finds solace in old books and memories of her dad. She steadily begins making friends, but Jane also faces bullying from the resident Bad Seed and struggles to tamp down her own worst nature in response. Ruth seems to be spiraling with the return of her childhood home, but she won't reveal why. Then Jane discovers that the storage room Ruth has kept locked isn't for storage at all. It's a little girl's bedroom, left untouched for years and not quite as empty of inhabitants as it appears. So let's give it a shot. I didn't finish the first chapter because it is extraordinarily long, but I did finish the first 20 pages or so. And before committing to keeping this, I checked the reviews also. I do think I'm going to keep it. I don't do horror very well, and this seems like just the right level of horror that I can handle, but that will still creep me out. And I think come fall, it'll be something I will want to pick up. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this one on my shelf. So we're now 5 books in. I'm keeping all of one of the books, maybe 2. But I asked Instagram, and Instagram's telling me I probably should not be keeping Shatter Me, that it's probably just not a book for me. So I'm probably going to listen to Instagram. So with 5 books left to go, the next one I'm going to pick up is The Last Letter. I believe I got this from yeah, hello cat. From, was it Scribner, the writing book box, and I think that's where it came from. And it's definitely not my genre at all, but I'm going to give it a shot and see if it's something that eventually I will read. Beckett, if you're reading this, well, you get The Last Letter drill. You made it. I didn't. Get off the guilt train, because I know if there was any chance you could have saved me, you would have. I need one thing from you. Get out of the army and get to Telluride. My little sister Ella's raising the twins alone. She's too independent and won't accept help easily, but she has lost our grandmother, our parents, and now me. It's too much for anyone to endure. It's not fair. And here's the kicker. There's something else you don't know that's tearing her family apart. She's going to need help. So if I'm gone, that means I can't be there for Ella. I can't help them through this, but you can, so I'm begging you, as my best friend, go take care of my sister, my family. Please don't make her go through it alone. Ryan. Yeah, I'm guessing this is going to be an unhaul. But let me give it a shot. This is a new record. I made it all of 4 pages before I'm deciding to unhaul this book. Beyond the fact that it's definitely going to end up being a romance, and a military romance, which is kind of a trigger for me for reasons I'm not getting into. I don't like the writing style. Like, they're describing war in the first little bit, and it doesn't seem right to me. And so yeah, it's definitely not going to be something I'm going to enjoy. I mean, there's a reason that I have not been picking this up, so it's going to go into the unhaul. So, having a great track record here. I will have to say, at least I am a fairly good judge of which books I'm not going to enjoy. Okay, the next book I'm going to be picking up is Sisterhood Everlasting, and I think this book was given to me by somebody for some weird reason, because I don't think it's going to be my jam at all. So, on the cusp of turning 30, Tibby, Lena, Carmen, and Bridget are now living separate lives out on their own. Yet despite having jobs and men they love, each knows that something is missing, the closeness that each sustained them. Carmen is a successful actress in New York, engaged to be married, but misses her friend. Lena finds solace in her art, teaching in Rhode Island, but still thinks of Costas and the road she didn't take. Bridget lives with her longtime boyfriend, Eric, in San Francisco, and though part of her wants to settle down, a bigger part can't seem to shed her old restlessness. Then Tibby reaches out to bridge the distance, sending the others plane tickets for a reunion that they all breathlessly await. And indeed, it will change their lives forever, but in ways that none of them could ever expect. I don't know. I've read this author's other works before, and sometimes I do like a good contemporary women's fiction, I guess. I don't know what this is actually called. I don't know. I'm going to give it a shot and see what I think, if it's going to be my jam or not. I'm just breezing through these. The good news is I'm going to get a lot of free space on my shelf. So I had no idea that this is like a long time sequel of The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, which I read ages ago, and I guess this is them all grown up now. And yeah, I honestly have no need to revisit that world. I did read The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. Watched the movie, which is probably how someone gave me this, because it was probably something they read and was like, oh, somehow they thought I enjoyed that stuff. I don't know. Hey, but do you think that's great? I remember that period of my life where I tried to join in and like it, and never really was. So I guess this kind of reminds me more of having to pretend to be somebody that I'm not. And I don't need to hold on to that part of my life, so I'm going to find this a good home to somebody who will appreciate it, because I'm sure it's an amazing book. And the other books were amazing. It's just, it reminds me of a period of my life that I don't want to revisit. So let's put it that way. So the next book is Paperweight. And this is a book I picked up, I think, on a booktuber's suggestion. I think it's about eating disorders or anxiety, something like that. And I am going to give it a shot because it's just been sitting here and I can't remember really why I picked it up and what it's about. So I'm going to make sure it's still something I am interested in. 17-year-old Stevie is trapped in her life, in her body, and now in an eating disorder treatment center on the dusty outskirts of New Mexico desert. Life in the center is regimented and intrusive, a nightmare come true. Nurses and therapists watch Stevie at mealtimes, accompany her to the bathroom, and challenge her to eat the food she's worked so hard to avoid. Her dad has signed her up for 60 days of treatment, but what no one knows is that Stevie doesn't plan to stay that long. There are only 27 days until the anniversary of her brother Josh's death, the death she caused, and if Stevie gets her way, there are only 27 days until she too will end her life. And it's an emotionally haunting and beautifully written young adult debut. Meg Heston delves into the devastating impact of trauma and loss by posing the question, why are some consumed by their illness while others embark on a path toward recovery? Wow. I'm kind of speechless. So let's give it a read. So I'm going to keep Paperweight. It's definitely going to be an emotional read, probably very hard-hitting, but definitely one that I want to keep on my TBR. So now I have 2 books left to read. I actually thought about doing this series entirely for my Book of the Month books to kind of like figure out which ones I'm still going to read and which ones I'm going to unhaul, but I only ended up including 2. And the first one is Beasts of Extraordinary Circumstances. I bought this because it was listed as sci-fi with absolutely no idea what this book is even about, and then it's just been sitting on my shelf. So let's see what it's about. Finding magic in the ordinary. Orphaned, raised by wolves, and the proud owner of a horned pig named Merlin, Waylon Gray knew he wasn't like other people. But when he single-handedly stopped that tornado on a stormy Christmas day in Oklahoma, he realized just how different he actually was. That tornado was the first of many strange events that seemed to follow Waylon from town to town, although he doesn't like to take credit. As amazing as these powers may appear, they tend to manifest themselves at inopportune times and places. From freak storms to trees that appear to grow overnight, Waylon's unique abilities are curiosity at best, and at worst a danger to himself and the woman he loves. But Mary doesn't care. Since Waylon saved her from an angry wolf on her 11th birthday, she's known that a relationship with him isn't without its risks. But as anyone who's met Waylon will tell you, once he wanders into your life, you'll wish he'd never leave. Beasts of Extraordinary Circumstances tell the story of Waylon Gray's life from the perspective of the people who knew him, loved him, and even a few who thought he was just plain weird. Although he doesn't stay in any of their lives for long, he leaves each of them with a story to tell. Stories about a boy who lived with wolves, gray storms that evaporate into thin air, fireflies that make phosphorescent honey, and a house filled with spider webs and strange men who inhabit it. There's one story, however, that Waylon wishes he could change, his own. But first he has to muster enough courage to knock on Mary's front door. In this warm debut novel, Ruth Emmy Lang teaches us about adventure and love and a beautifully, wonderfully written story full of nature and wonder. Okay, so this is definitely not a science fiction book. So it's either mislabeled by Book of the Month or it's actually a fantasy book that I picked up from there. Either way, sounds very interesting. I am excited to actually give it a read to see if it's something that I'm going to enjoy or not. Honestly, I don't think I've heard anything about this at all. It was just an option that was available, and they had so few sci-fi and fantasy books, at least when I was a member, that I kind of got in a thing of buying all of them until I decided not to be a member anymore. So I'm going to give it a shot and see what I think of it. So I've read about the first 30 or so pages of The Beast of Extraordinary Circumstances, which is actually several chapters because they're very short. And I really liked the description, what the description said. And I think if that would have like followed through with the story, that would be great. Each chapter is written by a different narrator, but even in like the 3 or 4 different chapters I read, they all had different narrators, and I couldn't tell the difference between them. They all kind of had the same voice and the same like writing style, and I have a feeling that's going to continue throughout the book. I did check the reviews, and it's got really high reviews. So I'm not sure if I'm just not giving this one enough of a chance. So I have put this one up on my stories and Instagram, and I'm going to see what other people think, and probably listen to that to decide if I'm going to unhaul it or read it. So now there's one last book in this video that I'm going to read, and that is The Cartographers. And when I first got this, I was really, really excited to read it, even though I didn't know what it was about. The buzz was really strong on this book, and so I picked it up. But then reviews started coming in, and they started becoming really mixed about whether or not people like it. So I thought it was a good pick for this, so I could start reading it to see if this is a book that I think will work for me or not. So, let's see what it's about. What is the purpose of a map? Neil Young's whole life and greatest passion is cartography. His father, Dr. Daniel Young, is a legend in the field and Neil's personal hero. But she hasn't seen or spoken to him ever since he cruelly fired her and destroyed her reputation after an argument over an old cheap gas station highway map. But when Dr. Young is found dead in his office in the New York Public Library, with the very same seemingly worthless map hidden in his desk, Neil can't resist investigating. To her surprise, she soon discovers that the map is incredibly valuable and exceedingly rare. In fact, she may now have the only copy left in existence, because a mysterious collector has been hunting down and destroying every last one, along with anyone who gets in the way. But why? To answer this question, Neil embarks on a dangerous journey to reveal a dark family secret and discover the true power that lies in maps. Perfect for fans of Joe Hill and B. Schwab, The Cartographers is an ode to art and science, history and magic, a spectacular imaginative modern story about an ancient craft and places still undiscovered. So I really want to like this one. So hopefully I do, but let's give it a shot. Alright, I've read the first chapter to The Cartographers, and this is one I am going to be keeping. I'm not entirely sure how the book is going to go, but considering I really wanted to read it and I really enjoyed the first chapter, I think it's something I'm at least going to try and continue with. So it's going to stay. So, overall, of the 10 books, I'm unhauling most of them. I think I'm going to unhaul Shatter Me and the entire series, and keep Horrid and Paperweight and Cartographers. So only 3 of them are going to stay on my TBR shelf. This is a great way to narrow down my shelf, and it's something I will most likely be doing again. So let me know if you want me to make more videos like this as I get my TBR under control. And if you are interested in these books, even though they're not my jam, doesn't mean that other people won't enjoy them and love them. Most of these I will be listing on my Pango account, and you can see some other books there that I have for sale. That kind of just helps me out with the whole writing process and acquiring new books. So the link for that is in my link tree, which is below. And thank you for joining me as I read the first chapter in 10 books and decided which ones to keep or not. As always, keep reading, keep writing, and until next time.